Hi, my name is Liz Hathway and this is my astrological look at the week ahead. And that's going to be the week starting tomorrow, Monday, the 17th of June. Yeah, what to say about such a week? It feels almost as if the pressure is building, or the kind of events that are coming in, these major aspects today. We have Jupiter square Neptune on Tuesday, this coming week on the 18th. We have Saturn sextile Neptune. We have a big full moon today. We have the sun's ingress into Cancer, not to mention Mars opposite Pluto. So it's just almost like you can feel the kind of build up coming into the eclipse season, which is going to be starting pretty soon as well. So we've got to start somewhere. So I'm going to start with the full moon tomorrow. It's a big full moon. It's falling over the Galactic Center. It's an interesting sort of concept, the Galactic Center, because in a way, if we think about really what's at the center of our galaxy, it's a pretty chaotic sort of space. There's a massive black hole in the center of it, and there's billions of stars in there, and they're all sort of bashing into each other, and it's kind of very dynamic, very creative. Obviously it's the birthplace as well of stars. It's like this birthing chamber, but there is that sense of things that are being birthed in and around the galactic center. There is that uncontrollable sort of feel to them. And I was kind of thinking of a few examples of events, that happened with significant planets around the galactic center. So, we could look at, for example, something like Diana's True Story, which was published with the Sun and Venus in Gemini on the galactic center. The shock waves that rolled out from that were, to the British establishment, it really was the start of a major sort of shake-up within the royal family. If we look more recently, 2 years ago, then we see what pops up there, which is pretty shocking, was the fire at Grenfell Tower, the Sun-Saturn opposition there in Gemini Sag. So the Galactic Center also has positive things. If you look at the first Monterey Festival, for example, which kicked off the so-called Summer of Love, and all these other festivals that sort of rolled out as a result of it, it also births positive things. But it's a kind of, there's a dynamic in that energy that it's very difficult to completely control. It's like the genie is out of the bottle, that sort of energy. And we have this big full moon. Full moons are always, they're like a halfway point, something that's birthed at the new moon, which is say, roughly 2 weeks prior to the full moon. There's a point in that cycle where you are able to look at what's happened, where you're able to assess whether, the goals you set yourself, whether you're on track. It's a moment of awareness. It's a moment to pause, reflect, certainly with the Sun in Gemini, to maybe contemplate, sort of life direction in general, with the moon in Sagittarius, which is very much about learning, expanding horizons, etc. Jupiter as well in Sag at the moment. But that idea of it being focused on an area of astrology, which, the Galactic Center, which is extremely dynamic, it adds a little bit of unpredictability into this period that's coming towards the eclipses, which will be starting once we get into Cancer season. So a big full moon. Today, I'm a day early today. Today we have Jupiter square Neptune, so I'm actually going to the sea today. I'm going to spend a few days at the sea. The sea is very calming. It's very forgiving. It's very, we can, as I've said in other vlogs, we keep on pouring stuff into our oceans and still life survives there. It just seems to be a very forgiving element, water. It can absorb a lot. But, it's interesting that under the square, which is today, Sunday, I'm a day early today, we've having this conflict now with America and Iran. you know, which is about ships, which is as a sort of a naval sort of quality to it. And Jupiter and Neptune as well, there's always a confusion about where the truth lies. You know, both these planets have a kind of caveat to the truth, you know, but Jupiter's retrograde, Neptune is in Pisces, and they're square each other. So where do you start? You know, this is, you know, a very tricky, dodgy, shifting sort of landscape in a way. Fortunately for us, on Tuesday we have Saturn sextile Neptune, which on a personal level is very much about, again, thinking about the future, thinking about our dreams, earthing the dreams, making things reality, birthing it. You know, there's a frustration, even though it's a sextile, because these are two archetypes that are so not suited in a way. And yet if you look at the birth chart of Neptune, the discovery chart of Neptune, these two planets are conjunct. So they obviously have to work together. You know, when it came into our consciousness, Neptune was coupled with Saturn. So we have to somehow do something with these two planets. And the sextile is a sort of opportunity, an opportunity to earth the dream, to, you know, to make it real, make it concrete, make it happen. And that's happening on the day as well of Mercury conjunct Mars. Yeah, that's a kind of, you could almost say Mars is, of course, the planet of war. It's the planet of conflict. It's in Cancer, so it's very much about borders. It's very much about protecting what's mine, you know, my sphere of influence, my borders, my waters, my you name it. And Mercury conjunct Mars could be, you know, a strong message being sent out. And if you think that on Thursday and on Wednesday we have Mercury opposite Pluto, and then Thursday Mars opposite Pluto, you know, this could be quite incendiary, what is said. It can incite anger, it can incite resentment, it can excite, you know, sort of emotional reactions, which, you know, are in general, certainly in a political framework, that is never advisable. You know, we need to be much more cautious, guarded, and not allowing anyone or anything to trigger reactions, you know, that kind of I press the button, you know, and the monkey jumps. We shouldn't be doing that. We need now to have reached a level of consciousness collectively where we can step back, be Saturn in Capricorn, which exalts Mars, the sign where Mars is exalted. You know, this is, you know, the correct way would be to wait until we have more information, check it, because, you know, in terms of the collective, you know, we seem to time and time again, you know, follow lame ducks or chase after, you know, things that are, you know, basically very Neptunian. They dissolve into air. There's nothing there when we get, you know, to the point of the reality, the Saturn check. So, yeah, it's a dangerous week in that respect. And then Friday we have Neptune going retrograde. So Neptune retrograde on a personal level can be really lovely, I think, because it's that time where there's maybe a bit of space to engage with other things. You know, we're coming into summer as well. Some people are going away, taking time out. School is going to be ending soon, and, you know, everything's sort of getting to the point where we can relax a little bit, where we can chill out really a little bit maybe. You know, Neptune retrograde in a more mundane sense, of course, can be quite deceptive, is certainly at the time around its station where it's putting all of its weight somewhere in, you know, the charts. So that is kind of a heavy moment for Neptune there. And Neptune can always be deceptive, can always be, you know, smoke screens, you know, can always be blind alleys. You know, Neptune is very much really as well the sort of magician who says, look here, and does something else over there. And so Neptune retrograde on the day of the Sun's ingress into Cancer, I think is interesting. So Sun ingress into Cancer, another one of these big points in the year cycle. These are turning points. This is something about the Earth's relationship to the Sun. So it's about consciousness. It's about, you know, the cardinal signs mark turning points. They are significant turning points in the relationship between the Earth and the Sun. If we did not obey the law of gravitation at that point, we would go hurtling off into space. The sun is a higher order, it's a higher consciousness. And these turning points in a personal way, they can point to changes in direction, changes of course, or decisions. We can make important life-changing decisions. You know, so it's interesting to look where that, you know, ingress is falling in your chart, because as I say, these are significant turning points. We get into Sunday, we have Venus opposite Jupiter, which, you know, with Venus at the moment in Gemini, this could be revelations. As I said, Diana published, you know, her very revealing book with Sun and Venus conjunct in Gemini. Sun and Venus are not conjunct, but Venus is in Gemini. So this could be, you know, some kind of a news story, you know, a big news story that comes into play in the weekend, involving issues around women, around, you know, sexuality, possibly significant relationship breakups as well in the collective, but big news involving, yeah, sort of Venus type archetypes. Saturn is also conjunct the South Node a week today, which is about release, it's about letting go. Saturn's retrograde, you know, it's very well placed at the moment, Saturn. It's able to do its job if we let it. It's able to exercise restraint, it's able to be patient, it's able to count to 10 before acting. And I think with things like Mars, Pluto going on, you know, I personally am very glad that we have Saturn in Capricorn. And I think what is interesting, what we're seeing as well, thinking a bit further down the line to Saturn-Pluto's conjunction next year, it's very interesting to see what's just happened in Hong Kong, you know, where the mass rose up, which is very much Jupiter-Neptune as well. There's these mass movements. And you can sort of see that the, you know, the awareness that people have sort of gained is sort of shifting now into consciousness, and consciousness then is taking, you know, is allowing things to happen, is creating action, and it's making the powers that be, you know, think twice about things. So yeah, it's a massive week, and I just noticed I've been talking for 12 minutes, so I think this is probably my longest vlog ever. Thank you for listening. Have a great week. Bye.